If you're new to this channel, I am streaming this voice call on Twitch, so if you say something, just be aware you're being streamed. And if you want to visually kind of follow along with what I'm doing, like picking parts and shit, then you can see it there. But I think yeah, there's a 10-second delay, so yeah. I'm currently running a 2600X with Trident ZRGB on an Asus X470 Prime Pro. Would it be fine to add another Trident C3200C14, or should I stick with another 2X8? I would stick with another 2X8, and also maybe not get 3200C14 unless you're planning on overclocking that a lot, because 3200C14 is incredibly expensive. That's a B-die. So, you know, if you have that kind of money, I don't know why you went with the 2600X instead of like a 2700X to begin with. And I don't know why you haven't upgraded already. Like B-die 3200C14, especially a Trident Z kit, costs a lot of money. So like, I don't know why that came before like getting a better CPU. Especially considering that getting a better CPU would allow you to actually overclock your RAM, because a lot of 2600Xs wall really hard, like even before hitting like 3600. So yeah. Should I buy this PC? No. Or build the PC if I kind of wait for parts to come out. Parts have already come out. We're just waiting for them to come back in stock. So, you're not like waiting for parts to come out.
Pretty much like every pre-built isn't as good as like something that you can just build yourself, right?
Usually.
Yeah.
So this deal is up on
There are
CC,
some
and
exceptions
there's
depending on
a
where you are.
$120 deal on Amazon that I think is out of stock. So I'm waiting for a bit. Is there a way to check if this would be needed to pick up in store if there's a shipping option? Try and check out. Try and check out. It says add to cart, so I'm assuming it's also available on the web store. I know CC does do web shop, so I believe you're able to buy that. But try it. That's how you find out, really.
Yeah,
Built
so it is
this.
available in the store. I'm just not sure because it asked me to like available order online and pick up in store. I'm not sure if there's shipping at all.
Okay. Yeah, I would call them in that case. Yeah, you can call
Okay,
Canada
yeah.
Computers and ask them. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give that a shot. Thank you.
Built this a few years ago and RAM compatibility was iffy back then, I think. Yeah, but buying B-die is a really weird way to get around RAM compatibility issues, because it's very expensive. Kick both of us out of VC for more space. We need to do it at the same time. We don't trust each other. You're gonna join back. There's nothing
Wait,
I
why
can
don't you
do
just
about
bring
it.
extra
I'm
people
not. I'm
in,
not
like
going
once the
to.
server's full, like the
I'm
voice
not
chat?
going to. It's just that me and Lesko don't trust each other.
No, I can. Like, I can move extra people in, but like when people from the text channel see that this channel is full, they like don't want to join because they think they can't, and it's like it's just more difficult to get people to join when it's actually full, because I need to move them. I need a
Aegis,
video card.
just like do a command, so it's at the same time.
Sir Sammy, when are you buying your parts? When do you need your PC by?
Oh, who's getting ready to fight for tomorrow's Black Friday?
I mean, I'm in Canada.
Hi,
so
Aegis,
it
I'm so
doesn't
excited for
really
tomorrow.
happen.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited too. We're gonna
Aegis,
have lots of
Ready
fun.
to swing.
Aegis,
Okay.
make sure that Lesko leaves and doesn't join back.
Okay. When buying a 600 quid PC, should I be buying a 5600 XT if I don't want to go through the VGA step up program? That depends on current prices. I would say maybe. Your general guideline is if a 5600 XT is cheaper than the 2060, then I would get that, but I would struggle to see how you could fit a 5600 XT into a 600 quid PC. I would assume it would have to be a 1660 Super, but I think if you use the 10100F, that would be possible, maybe? Yeah. NVENC is pretty much the best streaming codec around currently, right? Need more opinions on it? Yeah, at least until we see the VCN 3.0 results on Navi 20, which apparently is not super different. So yeah, then NVENC should be the best right now on 20 and 30 series cards, along with the 16 series cards that are above the 1650. Can I buy a PSU SSD and case in advance for my build? I'd rather you not, especially considering that a really good power supply deal has came and gone. So you kind of missed out on that. And then cases, there's nothing like super crazy or anything right now. And then SSDs also nothing like super crazy right now. Would you recommend getting a 1080p 240 monitor or a 1440p 144 monitor? It depends. Typically, we only tell people to get 1080p 240 plus monitors if you're like, you know, playing competitive type Twitch shooters like Apex and Fortnite and CS:GO and stuff like that, where you're actually able to get that many frames consistently and you're trying to play lower settings and you're trying to get the smoothest experience. But if you're just like a casual gamer, then I think most people would rather do 1440p 144. It's really up to you. It's up to the types of games you play and whether or not, you know, you consider like smoothness to be important or like maybe higher detail to be important. If you're like a competitive esports player, then yeah, obviously the former. But other than that, it's up to you. Icebire Aurora 420. Is this one of the best AIOs you were talking about yesterday? Yeah, but I wouldn't be trying to get like the best AIO possible. I don't think that's a good idea typically. These are the deals I'm looking at. All right, let's see if they're any good. Okay, let's see. Make my list. Yeah, tomorrow. If you come back tomorrow. You put together a list for me with the 2060 and it fit in the budget. Haven't checked 5600 XT prices yet. Yeah, you can check right now. I mean, I can check too later. MWE Gold 750 for $99.99. That's not good. So no. You have a MB311L for $50. That's pretty good. You know, yeah, I would buy that if you want the MB311L. That's a good deal. And then you have the SanDisk Ultra NVMe, 1 terabyte for 90. That's not that great. That's just an SN550. It's the same thing. So that's not that great. I mean, if you want it, it's not terrible. But yeah, I would only get the case. Yeah, everything else there is just, you know, just okay. XLR podcast and vocals mic. It kind of depends on a few other things besides just vocals. I would go to the peripherals channel and check the pins there and pick from the mics that we have listed there. So we have like the RE20 listed there. I think we have like the SM7B listed there. Stuff like that is probably what you're going to be looking into. So check the peripherals channel, go to the pinned messages and look at the mic section. I was thinking about you saying to get the 5900X over the 3950X. Can you explain into more detail? Isn't having 4 more cores good for video editing and Blender stuff? Okay, I'll show you. Remember though, they're not 4 more equal cores. That's what's important. So that's, yeah, I'm gonna show you something real quick. So let's say video editing. Hardware recommendations. Let's take a look here. So I'm gonna go to Firefox, right? So if you're not familiar with Puget Systems, this is Puget Systems. And let's look at their Premiere Pro Puget Bench results. So I'm gonna show you something real quick. Yeah, do they have normalized scores? V0.92. So they're not directly translated, but yeah. So this is standard. That's extended. Extended overall score. Okay, but you can see how, like, for example, the 3950X scores like right where the 10980XE does, and the 5900X beats the 10980XE, right? Despite the 5900X having less cores, because in video editing, typically 8 cores and 16 threads is where scaling tends to level off. And, you know, going to 12 cores, 16 cores does have some benefit. And you can see Threadrippers are still very good at video editing. But that's also because of quad channel memory as well. So 5900X would be a really good option here because, you know, decent amount of performance over the 5800X. And of course, the cost difference between the two CPUs is quite small as well. So I would probably do that. We can't see the tab. I shifted over. So again, you know, with all else equal, having 4 more cores would, yes, that would be helpful. But you have to remember the 5900X has, you know, 4 less cores, but the cores that it has are like stronger. That's what you can think about it like. The 5600 mech OC is $10 10 quid less than the 2060 KO for. No, I wouldn't return. Just keep the 2060 KO. That's a small enough difference that it like doesn't matter. I would keep the 2060. You said something about a form to fill out before you put a list together. When should I fill that out? Okay, so I'll show you the form. That's here, right? I'll send you a link in chat. So this is what the form looks like. It's basically just, you know, a nice little form, and, you know, fill this out at your own leisure. And, you know, when you're done, send it to me in chat. I mean, it's probably, you probably need to separate the answers with commas because, you know, chat is limited. But yeah, if you fill out this form, you know, write it in like a text document, and then tomorrow send it to me during stream, and I'll make you a list. So yeah. Okay. 05. Okay. This was a build I threw together the other day. Would this be good? I would go for a 10100F or whatever it was over the 3100, but it's more expensive with motherboard plus CPU, and I'm maxed with budget at 650. The 3100 isn't even available on your list, so I don't know about that. And then yeah, this list, I think I talked about this list yesterday. I said it was not good. You're getting an ITX board for some reason at this budget in an ATX case. The case decision is actually not terrible, but the MB311L is like $5 more right now. 580 is definitely not worth buying new. 970 Evo is cool, but and for that price, it's not horrible, but it's still not worth buying. RAM choice is okay. You can get slightly cheaper RAM. Hard drive is maybe. And then CV450 is just not good at 55. There's cheaper units that are better. So just not a good list at all. Getting 580 for 100 flat. That's okay then, I guess. I'm assuming it's used though. That's fine. Should I write it in a word processing doc? No, just write it anywhere, like a Google Doc or Notepad. Just anywhere that you're gonna store it temporarily, and then like paste it into chat. Don't actually upload the file, obviously. I don't think you can. So just paste it into chat, and then I'll take a look. SN750 at 150 or A2000 at 135. Neither of them, given current pricing, or for like a typical use case, anyways. Actually, let's see how expensive 1 terabyte SSDs are in Canada right now. Let's take a look. Already not looking good. Okay, great. So you have MP33 for 120, which is, you know, already a better idea than something like an A2000 at 135. So, yeah, at least for a typical use case. Or you can even get like SN550 if you really wanted to. But MP33 is pretty good. What should I change to make it better for the budget? Also, I can get a 3100 lol. Yeah, but how much can you get the 3100 for? Also, I'm gonna move to the people here to AFK because they're deafened. So I'm gonna move them to the AFK channel.
Look.
105 to 110. I would still left skull. You fucking Bill's gonna be angry. What should I change to make it better for the budget? Yeah, I wouldn't say 3100 is worth that much either. Where are you getting the 3100 for that price though? Hold on, I'm gonna steal some more people. That guy didn't even join. That would have been a good join too, because he's like asking about SSDs. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna start pulling more people in here, and we're gonna figure this out. Guys,
No, I'm not sure if you're helping someone with the build right now.
if you have a question, just type it into voice chat text.
Voice chat. All right.
I think that's everyone. Okay. Be good now. All right, 1 second. Going through here. Yep. Back at it again. Right. Back at it again. All right. All right. I'm gonna keep pulling people in, and we're gonna get this nice and full. Can you text because I can't hear right now? If you can't hear, then being in a voice channel is probably not a good idea. Aegis, would you consider a 3090 if it was in stock? For gaming, no. Local retailer? Do they have the 10100/F? Hey, I'm looking to add a GPU under $300. Also, what do you think of this build I currently have? I want to try to keep it under 850. That list is not good. Has a 3600 in it, which is not a relevant CPU right now. And power supply is not good. E300A is
When's
a
my
bad choice for
turn?
60. If you want to ask a question, put your question in voice chat text. And yeah. Dynamic or
I did.
condenser?
I posted.
I don't see a message from you in voice chat
voice
text.
chat.
So yeah, dynamic and condenser, it's a basic distinction between mic types. I would probably go to YouTube, and there's a bunch of great videos in YouTube that talk about the difference between the two. And it kind of comes down to your preference, what kind of room you have, what kind of audio you're recording, and how much background noise is in your recording environment as well. Should I get DLM22 or switch cases? Case has to look like H510. I mean, I guess DLM22 is better alternative because it's cheaper. Which GPU would you consider, a 6900 XT or a 3080? I'd say 3080, but obviously we don't know how well the 6900 XT performs. But if the other 6000 series GPUs are anything to go by, it's probably going to be disappointing, especially for $1,000. They didn't have the 10100, and the Corsair CV450 is $20 off. Is it still good power supply? No, it's not. So Metro, okay. If you're building a PC, or if you want to build a PC, since tomorrow's Black Friday, and we don't know really what parts are going to change in price tomorrow, as you know, in response to Black Friday, I am trying to avoid making lists for people today. And if you want a list, you can come back tomorrow and I'll make you a list tomorrow. Obviously, you know, I can't predict what's going to go on sale on the day of Black Friday necessarily. So I would suggest coming back tomorrow if you want, you know, a list. I can still talk about, you know, your list for educational reasons if you want, or talk about parts. But yeah, I just want to let you know.
Cyber Monday.
Cyber Monday is typically underwhelming, so if you want to wait for that too, you can, but you know, I would wait for tomorrow really, because it's just that close. All right, Mattis, let's see over here. Let's take a look. Hold on.
Hey, quick question. So I don't need help with building a PC. I got my PC already, but my freaking PC when it runs for a long time, it starts to chug FPS, and my
Okay,
temperatures are
you
right.
should probably go to the troubleshooting channel. It's in the tech support text category. So if you send your problem into that channel and maybe send some screenshots and stuff like that, they can help you out with that. Okay. Can we ask questions in the voice chat or only ask in the text? I prefer if you ask your questions in voice chat text. That way people who are muted don't get interrupted. Yeah. Is this a good monitor for 260? No.
Wait, you didn't answer my question.
Yeah, I'm getting down there. I'm getting down there. Give me a second. Okay,
Sorry.
Mattis, thoughts? Let's see. Um, Terrible, I'd say. Okay. Yeah, it's terrible, I guess. Yeah. 10600K is possibly question mark the right choice in Canada depending on what you're doing, but for the most part you should be going or should be trying to go 5600X even in Canada. I would not put a D15S on a 10600K. It's a pretty big waste of money there. The Z490 Carbon Wi-Fi is a good board, but it also is like $300, and you know you'd be just as happy with like a board that's half that price basically. The RAM is, if you're going to manually overclock your RAM or if you're trying to squeeze memory performance out of your system, I'd pick a different kit. And if you're not trying to do that, you just want to use XMP, then I would go for a cheaper kit. So it's kind of in a weird medium there. 1 terabyte hard drives are completely irrelevant in 2020, so drop that from the list. MX500 is not worth 120 Canadian per terabyte. 3070 for 1500 Canadian is obviously ridiculous. Meshify C isn't worth buying in Canada. TX650M is not worth 110 Canadian. There are better units that are cheaper and better units that are the same price too. And finally, A14s for 33 per fan are awful. So yeah, basically I would change yeah, every part on this list except maybe the Meshify C if you really like that case for some reason, but yeah, there are other cases that are, you know, have just as good build quality and airflow that are cheaper. Okay, cool. I need a case, motherboard, power supply. I've got a total of 1100 and I want a good looking case. Okay, so Sleep Demon again, you know, if you can come back tomorrow, I can help you pick certain parts. Only 5. Yeah, I mean, we just started, okay? And I'm also like, this is the day before Black Friday, so I'm not expecting the same thing, you know? Also it's just like, I don't know, feels weird today. Feels weird. Oh shit. Also, yeah, if you're new to this channel, I'm streaming this voice call on Twitch. So if you say something, just be aware you're being streamed. I kind of forgot to say that earlier. And also, if you want to like visually follow along with like me picking parts, then I guess you can see that there. But there is a delay, so yeah, okay. Let's see. Okay, so Sleep Demon again, you know, I would come back tomorrow and maybe start your list off from scratch. But if you want some basic feedback, 10400F is okay choice for 170. Although, yeah, that doesn't sit too well with me, but whatever. 2020 is being 2020. RAM is pretty overpriced. Unless you really, really like that specific RGB kit, I would change to a different RGB kit. That's definitely not worth 115, even if that's an A80, which it looks like it is. 2 terabyte hard drive is cool, but 1660 Super for 400? Yeah, that's a question mark. Cheapest Z490 in the US is 200. That is definitely not true. What would be the best 400 to 450 watt power supply in the $35 to $40 range? We don't typically recommend 400 to 450 watt power supplies because there are some good 400 to 450 watt power supplies, but most of them aren't good, and most of them are pretty close in price to the 500, 550 watt units that we typically recommend. So we usually don't recommend those units. That being said, at $50, you can get a Segotep GP 600 watt, which is a pretty good unit. What's a good budget shock mount for the Blue Yeti and AUC? A shock mount for the Yeti. I'm not really familiar with the, like, in terms of mics at least, like mounting systems in Australia. But if you go to Amazon and you look for like you just search like Yeti shock mount, I'm sure you should be able to find something relatively easily. I'm assuming you are using this with an arm. So, yeah, I'm assuming you already have an arm, so just make sure the mount is standardized and you should be all good. CPU pairing for an RTX 2060. I've been told a 5600X is overkill. Building a new PC so can adjust motherboard accordingly. I spend most of my time playing WoW and most AAA games. Oh, you bought a PSA1? PSA1 is pretty overpriced. I would have rather you got a different mic and got a cheaper arm, but whatever, it's okay. Yeah, but PSA1 should be compatible with like, you know, just your run-of-the-mill shock stuff. Yeah. So I wouldn't get a 2060 right now because they're really overpriced. The only reason I'd get a mid or low mid-range NVIDIA card right now is if you're going to use EVGA Step Up, which I highly recommend. Because right now all the low and mid-range cards are going up in price, and they're about to be replaced as well. So because of that, if you kind of have a budget that's under, like, let's say 1100, you're kind of fucked when it comes to GPUs. So you either have to get an AMD GPU like a 5600 XT to conserve value if you're not willing to use Step Up, which, you know, if I were you, I'd probably use Step Up. And then if you want to use Step Up, which is basically allows you to buy a GPU now and then pay the difference between what you paid for the GPU now and a new GPU's cost in the future. And then they send you the new GPU, you send them your old one. That's also a good option I would consider. So I would look into doing that, but a 2060 is just not a good idea right now, especially given current prices. And yes, a 5600X would be overkill. I would only go for a 5600X once you are like in 3070 territory. Or if you're playing like esports games, and the 3070 would have been overkill anyways, but that's pretty rare among the people here. Would it be better to get one 1TB NVMe for booting in games, or should I get a lower storage NVMe and 2.5-inch SSD for separate things? Typically, because SSDs have gone down in price a lot, I recommend like 1TB SSDs alone, whether they're, you know, SATA or NVMe or 2.5-inch or M.2. And you know, you can buy a 1TB and have everything on that terabyte, and usually that works out for most people. It's simple and it's clean, so you know, that's what I tend to recommend for simplicity. If you want two SSDs, that's cool too, but usually that's kind of rare. Yeah, it's either SSD plus hard drive or pure like single SSD, unless you have a very high budget. Will LAN-Cool 2 Mesh provide better temps and airflow to 3070 and 3080 compared to Meshify C? At stock, yes. Once you fill both with fans, it should be about equal. But I wouldn't be too worried. I would focus on getting a 3070 or 3080 with a good cooler, and then you should not have any problems with any case that doesn't suffocate the parts inside of it. People tend to be very over concerned about airflow. As long as you get a case that has at least decent airflow and it's not choking your parts, like even an H510 is fine. Most people think it's like a hot box. It's not. It's fine. You know, as long as you get a case that's not completely choking your parts, and you have one fan that's well placed or two fans that are well placed, you should be fine. Okay. What has a greater impact is actually which cooler you get on your GPU and CPU. So I would be more cautious about that than, you know, trying to min-max airflow by picking a specific case. Any of the cases that we tend to commonly recommend should be fine in terms of airflow. So like 500DX, LAN-Cool 2 Mesh, P400A digital, P300A with added fans, P500A, all that stuff, you know, or, you know, Cooler Master TD500. All of those cases are going to be just fine, and you're not going to care. So, okay, that guy posted a link, but he's not actually in the chat, so whatever. Thank you, no problem. Okay, is it possible if I wanted to swap motherboards to use an existing CPU, RAM, and GPU, just only swap the motherboard? It depends on which motherboard you're swapping to. If the GPU should be no consequence here, but the CPU and RAM may be a problem. The CPU especially, because RAM DDR4 has been around for like the last 7 or 8 years, whereas, or not 7 or 8, but like, yeah, the last like half decade or so. So you know, DDR4 probably not an issue. You can probably reuse the RAM in your new motherboard, but your CPU is probably going to be an issue. So like, let's say you have an 8700K and a Z370 board, and you want to swap your motherboard to like a Z490 board, then yeah, that's not going to work. You're not in the VC. Okay. Oh, you're on the... Okay, my bad. You're in the stream. I didn't know that. Okay, I can go over your list then. No problemo. Okay. A 3600 in Canada is not the right choice. Intel is cheaper for the same equivalent parts. B450 Tomahawk Max has never really been worth buying, especially for that price. They're just straight up better boards, I would argue, for a cheaper price. The RAM, 105 Canadian, is very overpriced for 16 gigs of RAM. You should be aiming for like 70, 80 Canadian. Your SSD, I definitely wouldn't buy 256 gig SSDs in 2020. They're not worth buying. Even 500 gig SSD, their value is kind of dubious at this point. 2 terabyte hard drive is cool. So I would aim for like 500 plus 2 or 1 plus 2 for your storage setup. 2060 Super is essentially completely irrelevant at this point because it's either incredibly difficult to find or very high in price, and as I can see on your list, it's actually not available. 4000X is a good case. It's also like 160 Canadian though, so like I would aim, if all you care about is having a good case, so like, you know, build quality, airflow, that sort of thing, there are definitely much cheaper cases that will do the same job. I would not get a 1 gigabit network adapter because basically all modern motherboards for modern systems have 1 gigabit like built in, so there's absolutely no need for that unless you're doing dual NIC for some reason. And finally, the SP120 RGB Pro is definitely not. Yeah, don't pay 28 Canadian for a single RGB fan. That's just whack. Okay. All right, cool. Let me scroll down here. Swapping to a B450 and an AM4 CPU and DDR4. Okay, so if you're already on AM4 and you're just swapping to a newer motherboard, you probably shouldn't have an issue unless you're doing something like 1st gen Ryzen on like a 4th gen board. Yeah, then you're gonna have problems. But let's say you're going from B450 to B550 and you have a 2600 or something like that, you should be okay. Best M.2 500 gig SSD right now. Okay. Delica, you keep my stream on because you like my voice. Thanks, BB. Okay. Best 500 gig SSD right now. Good question. Let's see. Wow, looks like the MX 500 for whatever reason is really cheap. So 44. If you want to use NVMe, you know, to have one of your M.2 slots be NVMe, A2000. Look at that, A2000. That's a really great price. I would argue that's like such a good price that I would even disregard the MX 500. A2000 is great. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Can you go over my list and tell me if you would change anything? My budget is around 1200. I have a GPU that can work till I can get the 3070. 3070, here I come. I like your name. Okay. Here's what I would do. I'm assuming because you have a GPU that would work until you get the 3070, you also have an entire other build as well that, you know, has that GPU in it. So if that's the case, I would probably okay, no, there's no use in waiting really. But if you do want a build, I would wait at least until tomorrow because tomorrow's Black Friday. So hit me up tomorrow. I'll make you a list from scratch. If you want, I can go over your list and like pretend you're buying it today. But of course, I would suggest buying tomorrow because, you know, Black Friday. Is NVMe worth the buy over SATA? At this point, that debate is kind of irrelevant because a lot of NVMe drives are so cheap that they're like cheaper than good SATA drives. So it's like, yeah, just get the NVMe drive, no question. But in a case where it's like, you know, the SATA drives are cheaper, for most people, no. You know, if you're just gaming, whatever, then most people know. Is the 3070 tough, worth paying $560? If that's US dollars, I would say yeah, because, you know, getting a 3070 for MSRP is going to be very difficult, and 560 is not that much more than MSRP, so I'd say that's okay. I'd say that's acceptable. When will you be on tomorrow? Probably like 4 p.m. Pacific, maybe around lunchtime, if I'm feeling it, which I have a lot of people to get through, so probably I will be on early. 70, here I come. Is that your actual name? Oh my god, that is your actual. Okay, let's talk about